Hey there, and welcome to another DAVAN explanation video. Today we're going to be taking you through our PEAK performance sheet.
And this one is our latest sheet that we created. It's super helpful for peaks. What Ryan and I noticed selling on Amazon is that how difficult it is to manage your inventory, to predict your sales forecast when there are peaks involved. We feel like Amazon is basically built to sell toothbrushes that have no particular peaks, for example. The IPI score, their suggested amount to send into Amazon, all of that is based on historical data that doesn't really look forward to, are there any peaks coming up? And we've seen this with some of our products that are gifts around holidays. So what Ryan and I are going to do is we're going to walk you through the sheet that we built for ourselves to manage these peaks, and hopefully you guys get some use out of it as well.
Yeah, so here you're looking at the sheet already filled in. It looks pretty cool. You can see we've entered in a few holidays, some common holidays, the dates, and how many units we can expect to sell on the highest peak day for each holiday. You notice here Prime Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday as well. Those are just single days that don't really have a ramp up or a ramp down. But we're going to take you through all of this so that you can fill out the sheet using your own product and your own holidays. And in the end, you'll get something that looks like this, where you can see how many units you're going to sell every month, or even in a manual range that you put in. That can help you know how many units you might have to send into Amazon FBA and take the guesswork out of all of it.
Okay, so here we have the blank sheet. This is what you guys are going to open as well. And we're going to walk you through it step by step. Remember, as with all of our sheets, anything that is blue is what you guys can enter, and everything else will be calculated automatically. Now, we like to forecast this for our individual SKUs because they have different peaks. And if you have multiple SKUs, then just go ahead down to the bottom once again. You can just right-click it and go to Move or Copy and just copy it onto another tab. You can also rename it if you'd like, and this way you can have all your SKUs in one of these sheets. So let's start up here. Just go ahead, enter the year, enter your SKU name so you know which SKU you're looking at. And then you're going to go ahead and enter the sales price. For our demonstration, we're going to say we're selling a product that is $39.99. And what we're going to do is we're going to enter a baseline unit of sales. Now, this would be the sales that you have on average during your regular month where there are no peaks involved. So if you don't have any peaks in, let's say, January or March, then you just want to go ahead and take at least a 2 or 3 week average and enter in that number right here. Now, if you haven't started selling on Amazon yet, and you're trying to figure out, what's a good baseline, then you can actually base it on competitors. Just remember, these competitors are well established in a good market. So if your competitor, who's been selling for several years is selling 20, 30 a day, right out of the gates, I don't know if you're going to be able to hit those numbers. So you might want to take a fraction of that as well. Okay, so for our example, we're going to enter in a baseline of 15 units.
So you can see as soon as you enter in a baseline of 15, the magic starts to happen. So the sheet says you're going to sell 15 units a day, and it already starts to give you a sales forecast. But this is a little too flat for us. We know that we have a giftable product. It's going to have several peaks throughout the year. The first of those is going to be Valentine's Day. So let's show you how you would fill in the Valentine's Day peak, for example.
So now, because we haven't sold this product over Valentine's Day yet before, we don't actually know the scale of the peak on Valentine's Day. What we're going to do is we're going to use some competitor data. And to do that, we're going to head over to Amazon and use Helium 10. So Ryan will walk you through that part.
Once you're in Amazon, you want to search for a direct competitor of yours that has been around for a while. So they have some good sales history, some good data that we can extract from. So let's pretend that we sell one of these like preserved red roses. I saw a lot of those over Valentine's Day. So let's search for preserved red rose. If this is your product, you're going to have a big Valentine's Day peak. The question is just how big is it going to be over your normal baseline sales? So I would just scroll through. I'm looking at the review counts. I want to find, a direct competitor that looks as similar to ours as possible, that has just a high review count showing that they've been around for a while and probably have a lot of good data. So I'll just keep scrolling through. Often you can go with the Amazon's choice. For example, this one here, they usually have good reviews and a lot of sales history. So I think this looks really good. Maybe it's similar to the product that you're selling, which is a preserved red rose that comes with a heart-shaped necklace, a perfect Valentine's Day gift. So let's click through to this guy's detail page and see if we can get some good data. And once in here, we can go to the helium-10 Chrome extension, and then we can do an X-ray. From here, we just need to click on the sales graph. And because we just passed Valentine's Day, I think if I select 90 days, that will show the last Valentine's Day. Perfect. Just for visual, I'm going to turn off here the trend line and the 7-day moving average. So we're just looking at the blue line of sales. And this looks pretty good. It looks like they had a really good steady baseline heading into Valentine's Day. They hit the peak pretty well around February 11th, February 12th, and then they dropped off to a nice baseline. So this is really nice data. If you find a competitor that clearly went out of stock or has some weird peaks or missing data, maybe try to find another competitor that has a really nice smooth looking peak like this, because that's going to make getting the data from them much, much easier.
So what we can do now is we can actually go ahead and we can download their information. So just go ahead and click this the settings button, or what's it called? What's that symbol? A couple lines?
People call it like the hamburger nowadays.
Let's go to the hamburger. Now I'm hungry. Yeah. All right, we're going to download it as an XLS, and we just click on that, and that'll download their data into us. And then Ryan and I, we're going to show you the DAVAN way to extrapolate this data and find out their right baseline and their peak.
That's right, because you could look at this data and try to guess it, but we're going to show you how to do it the DAVAN way, aka accurately. So in the file that we just downloaded, we have to make a couple of quick changes first. Let's select column B and go up to conditional formatting. And let's put in some nice, pretty, colorful data bars here. I'm going to put in some blue data bars. This will just make it nice to see the peaks. And I'm also going to stretch column B so that it becomes a lot bigger. Now you can see those nice data bars. If I scroll down, you can see the peak day here. A bit hard to see the number, but it's 1,618. And that occurs here on February 11th. So you might be asking, well, but Valentine's Day is on the 14th. Yeah, but the peak sales day typically happens, 3 days before the actual holiday. And that's because people are rushing to buy a few days before, knowing they can still get it delivered in time with Prime shipping.
So there is one exception that we've seen, and that's Christmas time. What Amazon will do is on your listing, they're going to have a little note saying this product arrives before Christmas. And what we've noticed is that as long as that note is on the listing, the sales are going to continue to be hot. As soon as that message disappears off the listing, sales will they'll drastically plummet because the customer is no longer guaranteed that it'll get there by Christmas. So they kind of get scared off of buying that product. And that really depends on many different factors like geo ranking, how many inventory units are available in a warehouse close to the customer who wants to buy it, and many other factors. So just keep an eye around Christmas time. It might actually be like a week before Christmas instead of the 3 days. But the other holidays, like Ryan said, it's about 3 days before the actual holiday.
Yeah, so let's start pulling some data from this. Let's make a little table off to the side because tables are fun, right? Right?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I fell asleep at the table idea.
So we're going to write the peak here. Above that, we'll write the baseline. And for the columns, we'll put them.
Is that how you spell baseline?
And us.
Is that baseline or base?
Good catch.
Yeah. I honestly wasn't sure.
Often catches my mistakes. Cool. So right here, we see their peak. So for them, peak, we can say equals this. So their peak is 1,618.
Really don't worry about the decimal places, guys. It's just the way that the data gets pulled, right? These are estimates.
Exactly. But what is their baseline? Well, this is going to be a pretty simple calculation. We're going to take the average of several days where they just had normal sales that were off peak, and that will give us their baseline.
What's a good practice is to make sure you get every day of the week, right? So we like to do either 7, 14, or 21 days. So we have at least 3 weeks. So we have 3 Sundays in there, 3 Mondays, 3 Wednesdays, because sales do fluctuate throughout the week as well.
Exactly. So the formula here is just going to be a simple average. And we're going to select a range, like Dave just said, of, let's say, 21 days.
Let's start January 1st. Because as you can see here, all the blue lines are pretty steady.
This is nice and flat. There was clearly no peak in January. So we can just take, say, from January 1st to January 21st, those 3 weeks. And that will give us what their baseline sales are. So we can see they sell about 60 a day. And on their peak Valentine's Day, they got up to over 1,600. So that's quite a big peak. But what does that mean for us? Well, we can just use these numbers as a guide for us to calculate how big our peak is going to be.
So the first thing we want to do is we actually want to find out what is their growth factor. How big does a peak get, right? So we can just call this here, what should you call it? X factor, growth factor. What's a cool word?
Multiplier. That's not as sexy, but
it's not as sexy, but you know what? It's accurate. So we'll call it the multiplier.
Says the scientist.
All right, so multiplier, right? So all we have to do here is
peak divided by baseline. And that gets us a multiplier of nearly 27.
All we have to do now is say, okay, let's take that information and type in our baseline, which we said was about 15 units a day for our product. And then we're just going to do this formula.
So if we sell 15 a day, what's our peak going to be? Well, here's our multiplier. So all we have to do is the simple formula of equals our baseline times the multiplier. And ta-da, we are going to have a peak of about 400 sales on Valentine's Day. So again, we're just using existing data from a nice, consistent competitor to calculate us. So we've never sold on Valentine's Day, but we already have, an educated guess on what our sales are going to look like.
Okay, so now that we know that we're going to get 403, we'll just round it. We'll just say our peak is 400 units. Remember, these are educated guesses. So we're going to sell about 400. The only thing that we have to figure out is when does the ramp up to this peak actually start? What's the start date? So it's very simple. We just go over here, and this could be a visual scan, right? The nice thing is we have the data bars. We can see it's pretty flat. It's pretty flat. You can also use these numbers as a reference. And my eye basically picks it up here. I think starting here is slowly when the ramp up kind of starts from this competitor. So I would take, if I'm using this information, January 22nd as the start date of the ramp up to Valentine's Day. So let's take these three information pieces. How do you say that, Ryan? You're the scientist.
These data.
These data. Is
I
data
know,
plural?
It is plural. I don't like that it's plural, but that's just how the world works.
Right. Let's take these three data points. Points? It's a bit nicer. That's nice. Okay, we'll take these three data points and we're going to put them into our peak performance sheet.
All right, so the first thing that we can enter in is just the peak name. This was Valentine's Day. And the start date, as Dave just mentioned, he saw an uptick on January 22nd. So we just need to type in the day and the year there. And the peak sales date, as we mentioned, was 3 days before the actual holiday. So this was February 11th.
Careful, you're missing the B. There you go.
There we go. My B key is not happy. All right. And finally, the peak unit sales. So we said on February 11th, we estimate we're going to sell about 400 units.
And that's it. So as you can see already, the charts are starting to, get formed. If you scroll down here, you can see the actual peak data is highlighted in gray. So that's during the ramp up phase. We have Valentine's Day. You're going to see it's a nice gradual uptick right after the peak sales day. The drop off is a lot more drastic. It's basically last minute shoppers, people, that might see their girlfriend only on the weekend after. So they're buying the gift a bit later for Valentine's Day. And then you should hit your baseline back again a couple days after maybe. So that's basically it. What we can do now is we can go ahead and enter a couple more holidays. Anything else to say about Valentine's Day peak here, Ryan?
No, I mean, this looks really, really nice. And you can see that even though your peak day is February 11th, you're getting significant sales. There's a lot of area under this curve. So, even though the peak day is February 11th, Valentine's Day in and of itself is a huge event. So this sheet will really help you plan for that.
Yeah, and for me, it's actually really helpful because it's so hard to imagine what is the area under the graph to actually visually see it. Because a lot of people say like, oh, you can expect your sales, to be like 5 times as big. But what they're forgetting is the ramp up, So what's really nice over here is on the side, we actually put in as well in this table, you can see February. So January, had 700 sales, let's say. There's a slight ramp up. Our baseline in March is 465. So February, we're going to expect 3,000 units. That's huge. So by having this sheet, you can actually take the guesswork out of it. Because I honestly think when Ryan and I first started, we didn't have the sheet. We underestimated the power of Amazon and peaks. And normally we sent in a couple units too little. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's continue the sheet. We're going to fill out a couple more holidays so you can see it come alive.
So let's see the magic of animation.
Whoa, Ryan, that was crazy. How'd you do that so fast?
Not selling.
Wow. Okay, so let's get back. So we entered a couple holidays here. We said Easter, Mother's Day, Christmas. You guys can put in any holidays that are pertinent to your product. Could be, let's say, Halloween. It could be Father's Day. Wherever you think, based on, let's say, your competitor or your own sales history where you have your peaks, just go ahead and enter them. What you'll notice here is that you get to see the nice sales forecast. And then if you scroll down, you're also going to see, the peaks appearing with their name, and we're expecting an increase in sales, the dates. One more thing that we allowed you to do is these peaks, they're ramp ups, but what we also have here is Prime Day. So Prime Day is a one-off, right? It'll be one-day event. There's no lead up to it. There normally is a little dip before because people are waiting, right? But you can just go ahead up here and you can enter in these dates manually because, it gets announced pretty late normally. Just put in the date, how many you expect to sell. And this is where one of those numbers like where people say, you can expect 3x in sales or 4x. This is where you can just put in that number and just say, okay, we're going to sell 45 units on Prime Day. Black Friday is going to have maybe 100 and Cyber Monday, 120 units.
And just a note here, Prime Day is not confirmed yet, so we're just guessing here at the 17th of July, but just wait until Prime Day is officially announced for 2022.
Yeah. Legal disclaimer from Ryan. Don't sue us. Okay, and what you can see is you can actually see here then the lead up to Christmas that we put in. We said about November 15th, we see an uptick. We're expecting here, you'll notice more than 3 days before, because as we mentioned before, it's normally like a week or a bit earlier due to the cutoff of Amazon saying will arrive before Christmas. Okay, and then we'll see here the ramp up to Christmas, and you can see it's a nice ramp up. And sales dropping off relatively quickly after that peak sales day. Back to your baseline. And that's it, guys. That is the peak performance. What we also did was, because you have the sales price up here, you're able to get a nice overview for your forecasted revenue. So this is super exciting. We love it. We can see that this SKU here should generate close to 750,000 US dollars in the year, with a baseline of only 15 due to the peaks that we're expecting for Valentine's Day, Easter, Mother's Day, and Christmas.
And the sheet doesn't only show you the revenue, it's also showing you the forecasted unit sales for every month, every quarter, and the entire year. So these are numbers that you can use when you go to your supplier to place reorders. It takes the guesswork out of how many units are you going to sell in Q3 or Q4. These are hard numbers that you can use to place orders. Finally, in the section above here for forecasted sales, we have a manual range. We use this all the time to know how many units we have to send into FBA. So let's say, it's April 1st today, and we need to know how many units do we need to send in to cover the next, 30 days. So let's type in a date of April 1st. And let's say we want to cover, have enough units in FBA to cover up until April 30th.
Yeah, this is especially useful if you have stuff stored in a 3PL stateside and you want to try to perfect your IPI score so you don't have too much stuff in at Amazon at a given time. Especially, like we said, the numbers that Amazon gives you, what they recommend you to send in, they don't know that you're going to have a nice big peak around Mother's Day, let's say, but our sheet will see that.
Exactly. Like already at the end of April, you would have, you're already ramping up to Mother's Day here. Amazon might not know that. Amazon might say, we recommend that you send in only 500 units from your 3PL to FBA. But right here, you can see we're saying, no, according to these numbers, you should send in almost 1,500 units.
So we tend to ignore Amazon a little bit because we trust our forecast. You can see March had 465 units, and it's a big, big jump. In this case, we would actually do it a bit more conservative, and we would say we got to take the peak. We got to send in all the units now for the peak. We know it's coming, so we would actually say let's do a week after the peak. We would actually say let's say the 12th of May, and then we can see now we'll send in all the stock for the peak. We're going to sell 5,287 before it drops back to the baseline. We're going to make 211,000 in revenue just in that. How many days is that? About 45 days. So absolutely amazing. A good way to forecast it. Make sure you have enough stock for the peaks. And that's basically it.
Yeah, use this sheet, fill in your dates.
Peak performance. Oh, you missed it. Do it again. Use this sheet for peak performance. All right, tagline. TM.
Trademark.
Guys, we hope you had fun with this. Put in your numbers. Let us know. Leave a comment. Subscribe.
Yeah, give us feedback on how you're using this sheet and how it's helping with your forecasting.
Yeah, and then even better, after the event, be like, man, you guys nailed it. So when we do our own thing, just see your little disclaimer, we're actually at like 3-4% accuracy, which is nuts when it goes from such a small number baseline sales to such massive numbers. To be that accurate is absolutely phenomenal. And we get super excited. So let us know how accurate the sheet is for you. And that's it. Join our group over here. Just click it. Facebook for a Facebook group, YouTube, subscribe, all that stuff.
Yeah, well, I guess you can't click on this video, but click, we'll put links in the description down below. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell for notifications. We put out these videos with new Excel sheets about every few weeks, so you'll be notified for every new video. Thanks for listening, guys.
Ciao.